Hello everyone, welcome to another educational video of the Entrant. Today we are going to detail study of what is RCP, why did India leave the group, the pros and cons of being in RCP. The contents that we will be discussing today is the definition of RCP, members in RCP, RCP versus DPP, the pros and cons of being a part of RCP. Why did India withdraw from RCP? Is India's exit from RCP a loss? In this slide, we will know what actually RCP is. So RCP as a short form can be expanded as Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership. The negotiations for the RCP started way back in 2013. RCP is basically internationally large trading organization, a market of 2.2 billion people and responsible for $26.2 trillion of economic output, accounting for 30% of global GDP. That itself shows RCP as a huge playground for business and investors. It is a group of 15 countries generating nearly third of global economic output and have signed the world's largest free trade deal with low tariff. The meaning of tariffs here is it is a tax that is paid on a particular class of imports and exports. So in a large trading organization, when they impose low tariff, it means that those participating members and even the merchants who are involved in trade can only pay just a cheap rate of tariffs. So in order that can help them to expand their trade and also increase their trade negotiations. It is a historic agreement that will have an economic implications far beyond the region's borders, signals a seismic geopolitical shift for all countries, the members and also the non-members of RCP. Being a huge trading group and also an organization that has a worth of $26.2 trillion obviously will attract a lot of investors and even the world trade attention towards RCP. Many experts believe that RCP as a Chinese way that targets to create a rivaling trading bloc against the European Union and the US-Mexico-Canada agreement. Guys, it's a world-known fact that China is now an emerging giant in the Asia. And presently, the world is moving into a bipolar situation, that is US versus China. China, with their excessive mass production, have been aiming to outpass US as the global superpower. It's so much evident in the global news that the recent US under the Trump administration used to take a lot of anti-Chinese policies and also trade agreements because USA fears China of outpassing them as the global superpower. In this slide, we will know who all are the members in RCP. So let's learn the members of RCP along with the national flags which I have provided in the slide. The members include over here include countries like Cambodia, Indonesia, Laos, Myanmar, Philippines, Thailand, Brunei, Vietnam, Malaysia, Singapore, and non-ASEAN members like Australia, New Zealand, Japan, South Korea, and most notably China. Now, this slide will deal about the difference between TPP or CPTPP versus RCP. The TPP, the Trans-Pacific Partnership, would have involved 12 countries covering 45% of the world economy, principally headed by the US. In 2018, with the withdrawal of US from TPP, citing for increased trade deals, the TPP got converted into CPTPP, which is Comprehensive and Progressive Agreement for Trans-Pacific Partnership, and was formed by the 11 remaining members. And now the CPTPP members are the United States, Canada, Mexico, Australia, Chile, Peru, Malaysia, Japan, Vietnam, Singapore, and Brunei. Both RCP and TPP were intended to create free and open markets. The TPP had more ambitious goal covering stricter common standards on labor issues, human rights, and environmental protection. So these rules were basically effective on the members within TPP. Next point, unlike the TPP and the other US-led trade deals, the RCP wouldn't require its members to take steps to liberalize their economies, protect labor rights and environmental standards, and protect intellectual property. Intellectual property refers to the ownership of an idea or design by a person who came up with it. It is a term used in property law. It simply means that no one can copy their product without their permission. So even if anyone wants to use a particular product that comes under the intellectual property, then they need to secure or ask for the permission to the person concerned regarding the ownership. And now we come to the next slide, that is the pros cons of RCP, positives and negatives of being an RCP. The positive sides include the strengthened free trade and economic cooperation among rival members such as Japan, Australia, Philippines, and the South Korea. The rules of origin is a term which means RCP will provide traders with single set of rules and procedures for preferential tariff treatment to access tariff preference for trade with other RCP parties, which should reduce complexity and compliance cost for participating traders. In the previous point, what I meant of the rival members are because Japan, Australia, Philippines, and South Korea are all US allies, which means they are friends of the US, and RCP is majorly dominated by China. So with the introduction of RCP, it has helped them to reduce the sort of tensions and rivalries that these countries had with China. And one more thing is that the trade deal and also agreements can be very easy under the RCP members. Third point, electronic commerce. The RCP covers commitments on cross-border data flows and provides for a more conducive digital trade environment. These are also provisions concerning the digitalization of trade documentation and the use of electronic signatures and electronic authentication to facilitate cross-border trade. Electronic media, what means is that it's a very efficient and saves a lot of times and can be done from any part of the world. So basically these all are done to improve and increase the flow of trade between the member countries in RCP. It is really a very good sign that is enjoyed by all those RCP members. The next point is the investment. And yes, another point is the intellectual property, which I had explained to you guys before, the definition of IP. So the RCP will raise standards of IP protection and enforcement including non-traditional trademarks such as sound marks and wide range of industrial designs. So guys, the main reason for why IP is there can also help the customers, because customers can avoid buying products that are of duplicate version, and they can only buy, helps them to buy original products that are launched by the producer itself. Now we are talking about the negative sides of RCP. Some analysts fear that the economic benefits of RCP are limited and could take decades to dominate, as many RCP members have already signed many bilateral trade deals and benefits from reduced tariffs. So, RCP, as I mentioned before, is a very recently organized trade organization. Many of its members before had links and also are still members of many prominent trade groups like ASEAN, SARC, etc. And the next point, many even argue RCP would lead to the dominant interference of China in overall economic and trade policies, the strengthening of China's Belt and Road Initiative, reducing the US commercial activity in the region. So, all of us are aware of China's tendency to dominate other countries' integrity and also their sovereignty. And China is building a lot of its developmental projects in many countries like Sri Lanka, Djibouti, etc., so as to increase their Chinese influence in the global atmosphere, so as to counterbalance the US hegemony. And now the last point is that many of them fear about the predicted political tensions between United States with its liberal democratic allies such as Japan, Australia, Philippines, and South Korea regarding their trade cooperation with Communist China. As I mentioned in the first point of this slide, that all these countries like Japan, Australia, Philippines, and South Korea are always indebted to US, and they will have to change their policies according to USA's foreign policy decision, etc. So you can see there is an uncertainty of these four countries of remaining in RCP and also involving in fight with China. Now let's come into reason why India exited from the RCP. Originally, India was a member of the RCP, but India pulled out in November 15, 2020, saying it wanted to protect service workers and farmers. There were also worries regarding the national market would be flooded by cheap goods from China. Modi had pushed the other nations to address concerns over deficits and to open their markets to Indian services and investments. Moreover, a positive response from India would be ironical to Modi's Atma Nirbhar Bharat scheme or self-reliant India. India may participate in RCP meetings as an observer and in economic activities undertaken by the RCP parties. Despite these accommodative efforts, many contend India is unlikely to rejoin the RCP in the near term. So guys, India is a very important player in RCP and is one of the most dominant members that has a power to balance the Chinese dominant trend that is feared in RCP. And with India having a large population as such, large population means large market, and also India is an emerging economy. So if India was a part of RCP, RCP would also have doubled its economic profit or its organization GDP. And it's a good step taken by the government, because if India was a part of RCP, our industry and markets will be flooded with a lot of cheap Chinese toys, which will also affect our local tradesmen, craftsmen, etc. And now, we're talking about, is India's withdrawal a loss? India would have been the third biggest economy in RCP. The presence The presence of India can halt Chinese seeking further integrate with regional economics, just as Trump administration urges Asian nations to shun Chinese infrastructure loans and 5G technologies. USA finds India as a potential partner to control the Chinese influence in the region as to protect United States interests in the region, and small economies can avoid the problem of excessive reliance on China. Now, coming to the final point, China says that India is always welcome to come back aboard or join the RCP whenever it is ready. So, to this, we come to the end of the video. I hope you guys enjoyed watching the video, and if you guys have any doubts or any sort of clarification that I have to make in the video, please comment down in the comment section below. As always, do not forget to like, share, subscribe,